It's another Q&A edition of Optimal Health Daily, episode 875, and I'm Dr. Neil Malik. Hey there, happy Friday, and welcome to another Q&A edition of Optimal Health Daily, where I answer your health questions related to fitness, diet and nutrition, and lots more. You send in the questions, and I answer them for you. Now, if you want to send in an audio question, the short link is oldpodcast.com/ask, or you can call and leave a message at 61 I love OHD. You want to hear today's question, so let's get right to it as we optimize your life.
Hi, Dr. Neil. My name's Teresa. I have hypothyroidism. I was wondering what your thoughts are on the top 3 foods that I can eat or should eat to improve my thyroid, as well as the top 3 that I should avoid. Just looking for more natural ways to help my condition. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Teresa. I've actually been receiving quite a few questions about thyroid health in the past few weeks, so I thought it must be time for me to discuss it. But before that, I have to admit something. I've recently come to appreciate the Home and Garden television channel. Well, it's more commonly referred to as HGTV. When I finally mustered the courage to admit this fact to my friends, I was relieved that instead of cruelly mocking me, they admitted that they often find themselves binge-watching House Hunters International. But House Hunters International isn't my jam so much. I prefer Flip or Flop, mostly for selfish reasons, though. The show films its episodes in Southern California, where I just so happen to live. So while I watch, I can say, hey, I know where that is. Anywho, one of the stars of the show, Tariq El-Moussa, is a recent cancer survivor. A few years ago, Tariq was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. It's actually an interesting story. A viewer of the show that just so happened to be a nurse noticed that Tariq had a large mass near his throat. The viewer emailed the show's producers telling them that Tariq needs to get this mass checked by a doctor. And sure enough, after he got his thyroid biopsied, it was determined that he had stage 2 thyroid cancer. It's possible that this viewer saved Tariq's life. Now, Teresa, you were asking about specific foods that may help or harm the thyroid. But first, I want to make sure we understand what the thyroid actually is. So the thyroid is a gland that's found in the neck right in front of the windpipe. This is why the nurse suspected that Tariq El-Moussa had an issue with the thyroid. There was a large lump or mass in Tariq's neck where the thyroid sits. When the thyroid doesn't function properly, it can lead to problems with metabolism, or basically how many calories you burn each day. So for someone with hypothyroidism, meaning the gland isn't as active as it should be, it doesn't make enough thyroid hormones. These thyroid hormones help with metabolism. So if we don't make enough of these hormones, metabolism slows down. As a result, a person may begin to feel tired and they may start to gain weight. But the opposite can be true as well. Someone can have hyperthyroidism. This means the thyroid gland is hyperactive and produces too many hormones. In this case, the person may feel energetic all the time. They may have difficulty sleeping and may have trouble gaining or even maintaining their body weight. Teresa, because you asked about hypothyroidism specifically, I'll focus on that. And it turns out that there are certain foods to eat and those that you may want to be a little bit more careful with in order to help the thyroid function at its best. I'll start by discussing nutrients specifically though, and then we'll mention foods that are high in those nutrients. So here are some nutrients you may want to consider increasing in your diet. The first one, iodine. Iodine is so important for the thyroid because it is desperately needed to make thyroid hormones. One of the best ways to help get enough iodine in your diet is to use iodized salt when you cook. Seafood is also a decent source of iodine, but I should mention that too much iodine can also be an issue, so no need to go overboard here. Next up, iron. Iron has many functions in the body. We often think of it in terms of whether we're anemic and whether iron is helping our bodies hang on to the oxygen which we so desperately need in order to function. But what's interesting is iron may also help the thyroid gland effectively use iodine and therefore help the gland produce thyroid hormones. Good food sources of iron would be meat, poultry, and seafood. Iron's also found in many plant-based foods. But the problem is this form of iron is not as easily absorbed by the body. One way to help increase absorption is to add some citrus during cooking. The vitamin C in citrus helps the body better absorb iron. Oh, and I have to mention, please don't supplement with iron without your doctor's approval. Too much iron is toxic to the body. Next, selenium. If we were to dissect the thyroid gland, we'd find it's actually full of a mineral called selenium. And it turns out this selenium is protecting the thyroid from damage. Selenium also helps the gland make thyroid hormones too. Now, seafood, meat, poultry, dairy, and Brazil nuts are all good sources of selenium. And the last one, zinc. Zinc, just like the other nutrients I discussed, helps the thyroid produce its hormones. Food sources of zinc include seafood, meat, dairy, and nuts. So as far as foods to avoid, luckily there aren't really any foods that need to be completely avoided. Instead, think about whether you often consume these foods and then think about cutting back. The first group of foods would be cruciferous vegetables. These would be vegetables like cauliflower, broccoli, bok choy, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, and kale. These foods may prevent the thyroid from producing enough thyroid hormones. The other one I need to talk about is soy. Here again, it doesn't need to be avoided completely. If your blood thyroid levels look good, soy may still be okay to consume. Just don't consume it within 2 hours of taking thyroid medication. So, when it comes to foods you may want to consider adding to the diet, you may have noticed a common theme: seafood, meat, and poultry. If you are a vegetarian or vegan, be sure you're consuming enough leafy greens and nuts, as these are decent sources of the same nutrients. When it comes to those foods that you want to be a bit more careful with, these would include cruciferous vegetables and soy. Thank you again for the question, Teresa. You'll be entered into a very small raffle every month to win a book. And if you want to be in the raffle, send me a question. Just come by oldpodcast.com/ask. Right on that page, you can record straight from your computer's microphone. It's really easy, and you can even play back your message and do retakes before sending it in. Or you can do it the old-fashioned way and call in. The number is 61 I love OHD. Both methods are in this episode's description, which you can find at oldpodcast.com. All right, and that's another week of Optimal Health Daily. Thank you so much for listening every day. Thank you for listening all the way through. Thank you for sharing the show with someone. Have a wonderful pre-Thanksgiving weekend for those of you in the U.S., and I'll see you back here on Monday where your optimal life awaits.